Is Caleb Williams failing as the Chicago Bears quarterback? And could the Bears be ready to move on from him at the end of the season? Guys, I'll catch you on the other side. What is up, Chicago? Welcome to your Chicago Bears Huddle, your UK take on all things Chicago Bears. I'm Owen W. James, and this is your update, guys. We're going to talk a little bit of Caleb Williams. Look, I'm going to get one thing straight from the out, and I know I'm going to get it from some Bears fans, but I'm not going to sit here and slag Caleb off. I'm going to mainly put out what has been said in the media at this moment in time and talk to you and give my opinion on what is being said at the moment by a number of NFL analysts, former NFL scouts, and NFL commentators on Caleb Williams. And look, Caleb obviously had an awful lot of problems last season because he was surrounded with an awful lot of crap. Matt Eberflus, crap. Shane Waldron, crap. Offensive line, crap. And all this crap has stuck a little bit. And Ben Johnson, Declan Doyle, JT Barrett, Case Keenum are taking time to wash that crap off. Caleb is learning. It may be slowly learning, but he is learning. But is he making the progress that we need to see from a true quarterback one, from a true franchise quarterback in the NFL? And certainly, over the last couple of weeks, he has really, really struggled. Now, against the Saints, he did pretty much stink the joint out. But against the Ravens at the weekend, he didn't play great. Don't get me wrong. He wasn't awful or garbage or as bad as some people are making him out to be. He wasn't great. He wasn't good. He wasn't bad. He wasn't awful. He was okay. But is that enough from a number one pick? That is, I think, the key question. And what accentuates this, that you perhaps wouldn't get if he'd been picked later in the first round or even was a second or a third round QB, was this pressure of he's failing, he's rubbish, he's awful, he's dreadful, he's garbage, he's trash, he's a bust, etc., which is certainly seems to be the agenda coming from some within the media. Now, is everything rosy in the world of Caleb? No, of course it's not. Things are not going particularly well at this moment in time. Of course they're not. He is struggling. And hasn't obviously in the last couple of games has not thrown a single touchdown pass. Has made some very dubious decisions. The interception against the Ravens on Sunday, when he could have easily thrown a little check down to Kyle Manungai and not obviously thrown that interception when he tried to force the ball to Roma Dunze, when he overthrew DJ Moore, and his completion percentage is not looking great at the moment. It is even down from last season when he was having more travails and more struggles. So, things are not heading in the right direction at this moment in time. And, Ben Johnson is the guy who was brought in to get the best out of Caleb. He is the quarterback whisperer, so as to say. And he's not moving in the right direction. Ben Johnson was a large part of what turned Jared Goff into the quarterback he is today. Now, Colin Cowherd and John Middlekauff on The Volume discussed Caleb Williams following that loss to Baltimore. Now, look, Colin Cowherd is a guy who a lot of time talks a lot of crap, and I don't have a great deal of time for Colin Cowherd. I do think he is a bit of a shock jock. He is a bit of a rage baiter, etc., etc. This is what he said. He said, Caleb, in my opinion, is never going to be consistently accurate thrower of this football in this league. Am I too harsh? Josh Middlekauff said, no, and if he's not going to work with Ben Johnson, then he ain't going to work anywhere. He went on to say this. Williams has not played well. Their team has. The running back has played well. The defense has played well. The quarterback has not. How many times today with Caleb had guys in the flat, even on completions, they have to stop. There's no rhythm to his game. And I think Caleb isn't remotely a good player. Physically, he's got a lot of gifts. But in terms of good playing the quarterback position, I think he's borderline, not even average. That's a problem. So, pretty strong words from former NFL scout Middlekauff and obviously as well from Colin Cowherd on Caleb Williams. And even head coach Ben Johnson criticised Caleb over that interception. He said that basically in his mind there was another option he could have taken, obviously referencing the check down to Kyle Manungai. I think the situation is that Caleb at times does overthrow the ball. I think he tries to gun balls in where a little bit of touch, a little bit of ease would be better. I think there's times when Caleb does miss reads, does miss progressions, does underthrow people. And these are all things, I suppose, that, that perhaps we want to see him as a number one prospect working a little bit better on this, being better on this. He's now a year and a half into his professional career, and the lack of production with Williams is a little bit concerning, I think, for the Bears and for obviously us as a supporter base as well. You look at the last few games that Williams has played. He's gone 40 of 64, which is 62.5% completion percentage, which is a little low. 457 yards, 0 touchdowns. This is his last 2 games against the Saints and the Ravens. He's thrown 2 interceptions, and he's averaging just 7.1 yards per attempt, posting a rating in the low 70s. Things don't look particularly great from that aspect for Caleb. Overall this season, he's thrown for 1,639 yards, 9 touchdowns, and 4 interceptions, while his overall completion percentage sits at 61.9%, which is low. It is a low percentage. 4 of his passing touchdowns that he did throw, of those 9, came in the game against the Cowboys. And he's only totaled 2 touchdown tosses since that Cowboys game. There's been a real inconsistency to his play, a real lack of quality to his play. I think what's kind of carried our wins and our victories over the last couple of weeks has been the quality play of the defense, and also the fact that DeAndre Swift has stepped up. Now, don't get me wrong, I think we struggled on Sunday because DeAndre wasn't fully fit. We couldn't run the ball as well as we have done, and not having a fully working, fully cohesive running game does obviously affect the passing game. But there are wider issues around this. Caleb is missing things. He's missing easy throws. He is missing easy reads. He is missing progressions. He's quite clearly having an issue with reading the game at this moment in time. Now, all of this, yes, is eminently coachable. And these are things that JT Barrett, that Case Keenum, that Ben Johnson. I know Case Keenum is a quarterback, but he's still part of that mentor group, I think, around Caleb. But Caleb is quite clearly finding things hard at the moment. He's quite clearly struggling. He's kind of having a sophomore slump after not having the best of a rookie year. So Ben Johnson really does need to develop and work with him on this and try to kind of sort this one out, because at the end of the day, there needs to be forward motion. There needs to be a constant forward motion from Caleb Williams. And look, I'm not sitting here this morning and saying that everything that Caleb has done is bad. Things are, he's developing a good understanding with Rome Odunze, but Rome is dropping passes. That's on Rome. He's led some fourth quarter comebacks as well. Yes, which have resulted in field goals, perhaps not obviously in touchdowns, but he still led those comebacks in games. So it's not all bad. And there is some forward motion. But by that same element, there is some issues around what Caleb is doing. Look, we were 16-13 down in that fourth quarter, and we were buried in our own territory, and he throws that pass that was meant for Rome Odunze to Nate Wiggins, and it wasn't a great pass at all. Wiggins obviously gets the ball to the 9-yard line. 2 plays later, they're punching it in for a touchdown. Caleb said this on that pass. He said it was a good read. Rome was man-to-man with the guy who caught the pick. I just didn't give a good ball to Rome. So, at least Caleb is kind of admitting there are some issues with that, with that problem. His stats are down. His stats are quite clearly down. It isn't heading in the right direction from that aspect. And I think, that is a big worry for the Bears. And I think, Caleb has this season. Now, I'm not sitting here this morning and saying to you, look, we should be benching Caleb, and we should be benching him. We should be benching him for Bagent, which obviously will upset the Bagent baddies. But we need to see more production. We need to see a real step forward for Caleb over the next couple of weeks if we're going to have that restored faith in what he's doing, because quite clearly at the moment he is making some bad decisions. And it's obviously something that Ben has got to get into with him. Guys, I'd love to know your thoughts on Caleb Williams and where he currently is at the moment. Is he the man of the future, or are we going to be looking for a new quarterback in the draft next year? Guys, let me know your thoughts in the comments. Thanks for watching the Chicago Bears Huddle. Obviously, if you've enjoyed the content, please like, comment, share, and subscribe. Bear down.